My first experience was a disaster. Okay.
Wow.
We hired a bunch of people. We had to respond. There's a whole story on it called the Virgin CTO on my site. I screwed it up real big. And what I did was I didn't get upset and I didn't get upset about screwing it up. I said, all right, let me analyze how I screwed it up and never repeat that mistake again. So the way I screwed it up was I moved too fast and expand too rapidly, not knowing how to expand. So what I did was I put in place a series of checklists of things that absolutely have to happen when we're developing a feature. And so one of the things that has to happen is the graphics have to be completely present and clickable interactive. So there's a completely clickable interactive version of the application. The second thing is that they all have to have a user story. So a narrative that explains exactly how everything works. Every single page, every single screen, every single feature has a narrative. And if you have the narrative and you have the graphics, so the narrative is really great for the graphics people, because when they read the narrative, they say, okay, this is how I need to position the graphics. I do the way I do it is I do the narrative and the wireframing, kind of go back and forth between the narrative and the wireframing, and they all start with the business needs. So somebody comes to me and says, we need this. I say, okay, cool. I make a quick few bullet points. All right, this, that, the other. And then I go and I start doing wireframes. And while I'm doing wireframes, I'm filling out my user stories. Once I have the wireframes and the user stories, I send those and I give them to the graphics people, right? So now I've got wireframes, user stories, and graphics. After the graphics is done, we hook it up and click it. We use like InVision and Sketch. We hook it up so it's completely clickable. So now the entire application is like there working graphically, but there's no code. No code has yet been written.
Yeah, I understand.
So like 60 to 80% of my project is not even writing code. So then after that is all done, then we give it to the development team, which I oversee because I have 17 years of coding experience.
Yeah.
So when we do it to the developer team, they have to follow a checklist. And their requirements are they have to write test, model out the schema. They have to stub and mock any sort of API call responses. And they have to have everything done in a way that I would deem acceptable. And the way I teach them that or show them that is I show them a previous code base. And I say, write it in this style. Use these conventions, right? And they can see it and understand it. And then they write in the style that I like writing in. That way I can, scale myself. So if you do all of these steps and you have them write the test and you do continuous integration and you have the test run before they get into production, so they're running at development staging and production, and you do all of these things, then the product comes out amazing and you don't have the problem of working too much or having 8 people and having the product fail. So these things are not things that like I just sit back and say, oh, this would be great if. I've had lots of failures at all the different points in my career, and I have found each one of these things putting in place makes the product better. And then every one of these has a lesson behind them, and experience and pain and heartache and failure and money. And so they slowly built up over, almost 2 decades, right? It's a long time. And, over 30 different projects that I've done, they slowly built up. And then finally I've gotten to the point in the last, 5 to 7 years where I'm able to very easily put out high quality products. And it's because I don't allow them to go outside the framework. This process works and it produces a high quality app. So when I talk to people, I get questions like this all the time. It's they're having trouble with their development team or their life cycles or whatever. And all I say is you go back to the playbook. Are you doing all the things that I do to produce high quality products? And it's never once have I ever come across someone who said, we're doing every single one of those things and the product's still coming out poor. Never. It's never happened. If it does, you'll be the first to know. What usually happens is they say, well, we're really stressed. Business is overwhelming because people want stuff from you and they're throwing money at you saying, do stuff, do stuff, do stuff. And then they haven't been in the position before where they've had the rapid growth to deal with it. Just like me, the first time I had it, I had no experience and I screwed up super bad, right? So and then I decided to make it my mission to figure out what is the way to get this done. Because I could have been like, oh, I did this, it didn't work, I can go try something else in life. but absolutely not. I was dead set. I was 100% determined to figure out how to get it done right. And wow, if I didn't spend my entire life doing that. So if you're in a position where you're a CTO and you have this concept of needing to protect developers, you have a huge problem. That's not like that's not something that happens in large success. It's not protecting developers. There's a problem with the CTO interacting with the other parts of the business, or the way the humans are structured in the business, because they should work. It should all be working together. So there should be a process. There's no need to protect. If there's a problem, these are the steps. It goes A, B, C, and then it's resolved. And then there's a communication breakdown. So if you're having to protect them, if you're saying those words, what that means is people are angry and they're trying to go to the developers, creating a situation where you have to protect the developers from the other people at the company.
Yes.
And so that's a situation you have to address. You have to take care of that situation. You have to design a system, right? You have to design an idea to keep that from happening. Now, the way I do it, here's how I do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have developers, and I'm the CTO, and I've got the business needs. They say, let's give you the first scenario is they say they want a feature, right? They're very happy. They say they want a feature. I say, okay. So I describe the feature. I do what I said previous in the call, where I ask about the business, then design, wireframe to mockup, into development. And then I'm constantly giving them updates about where everything's at. They never have to come to me and say, Joel, what's going on? Because I always keep them informed every step of the way. Now, the second situation we'll give you, I think you're more talking about, is things are backed up and they're angry, right? The only reason why they're angry is because things are backed up. If you have one issue happen and there's never been an issue, people usually aren't angry. They're just like, hey, take care of this.
Yeah.
The reason why people are angry is because there's a number of issues backed up. You have a backlog, right? So what you do is this took me a long time to learn working with business people. It's a great one. Okay. I say the issue starts piling in. I say, okay, the first time an issue comes in, I say, okay, there's the issue. I put it in the back. I put it in Pivotal. I use Pivotal Tracker.
Mm-hmm.
So I put it in Pivotal under issues, and I say, there it is. Okay, based on how many developers we have and how much bandwidth we have, Pivotal automatically says, all right, well, that will be done based on your current pace on December 15th, right? So I say, all right, I put the issue in, and then I'll email back and say, hey, okay, your issue's been logged. I understand. We've got it. We found it. We reproduced it. We're expecting, based on our current backlog, that'll be done December 15th. Perfect. Okay, another issue comes in. Now let's say you had a really bad week where a bunch of things come in and tension is starting to build, right? Mm-hmm. So what you do is this. They're calling you and they're frustrated. So you take a screenshot, or you allow them into Pivotal, and you show them the backlog and you say, look, I understand. It is super frustrating that these problems are happening, right? Here is the backlog. What is a priority to you? And I will adjust the backlog so that we accomplish the most important things first. If we want to get it done faster, we have to scale our team to respond faster, right? Now, if you find, and then that's how I would handle that. And that works every time, because what you do is you make a shift. You make a shift from them saying, oh, I'm so upset at that guy. There's so many issues, right? To, oh, there's the list. Okay, this is the most important thing to me, and I'll drag it up here. Okay, it'll be done then. Now your job is simply to make sure the pace of your development team stays consistent to what it was. And that's not a problem. That's actually fairly easy to do. You have the people, you understand their pace, you're using it in Pivotal. Yep. And that's why I use these tracking systems, because what it does is it takes the decision of you deciding what to work on and it puts it into their hands. So they say, okay, now this is getting done at this time. And so that will solve an angry. So if you're already in a situation that's bad today, right, then that's how you would resolve it. You would just start doing that right away. Ideally, you wouldn't be in that situation. Okay. So if you go back to the beginning of the project, if you have this, everyone listening and you and everyone, we'll all have another project in our life, right? Because life is long. So on the next opportunity from the beginning, do it the right way. like by the stuff that I say about how to structure and what's worked for me is what I consider the right way. Do it the right way from the beginning, and you will have very little bugs. Now, bugs always happen,
Yeah.
right? But if you have if you have low quality, high volume developers, so if you have eight C rated developers, like ABC, if
Hmm.
you have eight developers that are at the level of C, like not great, you would be way better off having two A developers. Okay.
Yeah, I understand.
You trust me, I've done it 100 times. Like this is so on your next project, it would hire the better people and then give them the correct way that you believe in to do the project, and then see how that goes. And what you'll find is a few things. If you're doing the test and you're doing the user stories and you're doing the wireframes and you're doing the graphics and you're doing all of these steps and making sure that they all align with the business and the value, then you'll get an excellent product because you're taking all the right steps. You'll have less bugs, which will mean less potential for tension. It doesn't mean that it won't happen. It will absolutely happen.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
it's how frequently is it happening? How many bugs? Like, are you getting 100 bugs? Like, or can you build a better product and now you're only getting 10 bugs? And that's much easier to deal with. Okay, so I don't like to bring time into it, right? So you're asking me, you have to you're making an application where you have to write test, right?
Yes.
And that's a requirement. Perfect. It should be every time. And
Okay.
you're doing it for a startup, and you're telling me that there's a time, like, and let's say that someone puts a time constraint on you, right?
Yes.
Okay. The answer is write the highest quality code, the best, most stable code you can reasonably write inside the time constraint, and that's where you're at. You can't force something. They say they don't get to put the constraint on you, right? You say, look, you want a quality product. This is what we do. I see so often the lead developers and stuff, they're letting the businesses put constraints on them. And then they only look at what they currently have as resources and they say, okay. And they try to rush and make it happen. And they start clipping away and sacrificing their product. Huge, huge mistake. What you must do is if you know that you can't produce what they're asking for in the time frame that they're asking for it, you have to turn around and say, it cannot be done. Here's what we can do. Or it can be done if we take these steps. So if somebody comes to me and they say, hey, I had this happen last week, 3 weeks ago. This guy came to me and said, hey, I want to design this game and I want it done in 3 weeks and I'll throw as much money as you could possibly want to get it done. I said, no, you can write me a $10 million check. You're not getting that game done in 10 weeks the way you're showing it to me. It will take longer than that, no matter how much money you have to do it right. Okay. You got to get everyone on board. You have a semi complicated game. There's lots of pieces to think about. You got to get through testing. You got to get through user experience feedback. All of these steps, it's not happening in 3 weeks. Goodbye. I turned away the project. If in It's just not possible, right? And so what he did was he came back. He said, "Okay, well, tell me what's reasonable. What's reasonable?"
Hmm.
And so I said, "All right, well, here's what's reasonable. It's gonna cost this amount of money. It would take this amount of time. Here are all the steps that we have to take to deliver you a quality product. And if we go through this process and we do it right, then we will come out with exactly what you want. But you don't get to dictate how long it'll take to develop the quality product. You come to me because I make the quality products and I tell you how long it takes and how much money it costs."